Hello, this is Mr. Fleming, and this video is for my Art 1 class. We went fully remote January 11th. We were told about it last Friday, so I'm going to guess a lot of you didn't even know you were fully remote until this morning. That's unfortunate, but it is the reality we have. And you really need to stay communicated with us. The LMS is how we're communicating. And it's really important that you take the initiative. And I know it's brand new and I know it's difficult. There's a lot of you doing just great. Some people have really embraced this new model and really have taken it on and are growing and learning. And I think that's what we all should be doing. Others are having a bit more difficult managing their time. And I'm going to try to help you out the best I can. If anybody wants a personal Zoom meeting, I'd be happy to talk to anybody. A few kids have asked and we've done Zoomings and they went really very, very well. If it helps having some contact, just give me an email. I'll make sure that meeting happens. I will having office hours on Wednesday in the afternoon. That's another good time to talk to me, email me. But again, I'll set up a meeting with you. As far as the project goes, we had a project due today. This needs to be done in your sketchbook. I'll do another video setting up another project, but I'm going to kind of move the projects forward and keep them a little bit shorter so that we can kind of keep a momentum. And we're going to follow the same format as always. So please keep in mind that you need to make a decision right away. Am I going vertical or am I going horizontal with my picture plane? We're only using rectangles. You're welcome to use whatever you like, but that's usually the format. I also broke it into quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was an option with this one, and it's always an option with your drawings to kind of arrange the picture plane the way you want to, but I do want to keep in mind it is 8 by 10. That fits in your sketchbook, it's easy to print, and you really should take a photograph of all your finished work, and we should have 2 finished works at this point. We talked about the elements of art that create the principles of art, and we should always be able to recognize and talk about the element that we're working in and the principle that we're trying to accomplish in it. In this one, we were trying to make line, create movement, but we could also use shape to create movement. Movement was the principle I wanted, and I wanted to use those elements. Now, I've shown this many times. This should be in everybody's sketchbook. If it's not, please copy it down. It's just not that hard, but you really want the vocabulary there. You want to know the elements, line, color, tone, texture, shape, that make the principles, emphasis, contrast, rhythm, movement, and there are many of them, but we're just going to keep that mindset in there. And we'll always be using this format too, in which we are going to use thumbnails, roughs, and final drafts. And I'm really going to be a stickler on that point. So over here we can see the process. So I did over here my thumbnail first, and there's my thumb. And I'm going to make a sun face with the rays moving in front of it. This is just a quick sketch. It's not supposed to be detailed. I move over to a rough. I did a rough here. I did different color studies that I wanted to accomplish. I chose one, and then I executed a final draft, and this is my final draft here. There's some tweaking I have to do to this one, but that's the process, and at this point, you should know that process, and I want to see that process in your sketchbook. And even the AP students who are working, they are supposed to be working with an investigative question, but in truth, they want to show the process of how they accomplish their artwork. Many people like to be intuitive and improvisational with their art, and that's wonderful. But as far as a curriculum, you should be hitting these markers and these benchmarks because you want to grow as a student as well as an artist, and this will help you in both. So you can see here, I've got the movement of the rays moving in front of the face, the rays moving over here. I have my face, and I'm also working with texture a little bit, packing that color up there. So that one's accomplished. The second one, we had a 4-panel. And we have a figure coming into the foreground, getting closer, and coming through the foreground. Now with this one, we talked about setting up our drawing forward. So that's my rough right there. And what I've talked about, especially with this one, is lettering in your artwork. This is not a typography course. You can get a degree in typography. It's a very, very, very intense and very, very wonderful field. It really is. But this is not one. But when you're using letters, words, or symbols in your artwork, you've got to be very careful. We are all trained and socialized to be literate, and we take on a subconscious understanding of letters and how they're supposed to be worked, and placement is very important. Now, you have artistic license, of course, if you have some sort of theme that you're trying to accomplish, but in general, when you want to use lettering, you have to kind of make sure that you have severe symmetry and that you have the spacing taken care of. The spacing between the letter is kerning, the spacing between the lines is called letting, and I talked about that one. I'm going to talk about that one more little bit, if I can just find my paper. So we talked about how you could set it up in speech bubbles, excitement bubbles, thought bubbles, and we don't know what the bubbles were, but really how to get that placement. So I put a rectangle within the speech bubble or the thought bubble so that I know it's going to be centered and I know the letters are not going to touch the edges. Now, that's if I'm freehanding it, and you can freehand it. I don't want to be so obsessed about this that you feel like you can't freehand it, but I think it's easier if you print your letters. Take a look at this upside right, and that would help. Okay, and let's just talk about some general things of typography, and that's all. Okay, so up here I'm justifying left, and that means my words are all going to be all straight along this one, and they're on even here. And it says here, typography, the style and appearance of printed matter, the art of procedure or arranging type, and that's what typography is. And basically, any kind of print material, website, magazine, newspapers, books, there's a very specific art to that typography. Actually, it's a technical science, it really is, and you've got to be careful. That's what typography is. It's whatever. But as far as you, just understand what justifying left is, and over here is justifying right. And I say take care of letting and tracking before kerning. Tracking is the overall spacing between groups of letters. Letting is the vertical spacing between line and type. Kerning is the space between letters and characters and a piece of text or print. Not so important if you're not going into it, other than you want to know how to use your Word program, your text programs, and over here what I did is I showed you there are different fonts you can choose, and that probably is the first step. What font will I use, especially in a printed document? I suggested Helvetica or Arial. That is the easiest to read. Over here is Comic Sans, and you can take a look at it, and that's the comic printing that is common in comic books. It's just cultural, it's historical, it's what we use. I don't think it's necessary. Over here, I have, that's Arial. You can see it's just a lot easier here to read. And over here, this one was called Joker Man, that's what it is. And it's a little bit more stylized, and you can see. But what I want to show you here, too, that it is justified centered. So the words are stacking up. But if you have a program like even Word, it's just a lot easier to do this in a program. The program that you should be thinking about is InDesign. That's the one that really complicated. So just keep in mind that. Also, take a look. Am I going to stack the words? I'm going to put the words side by side. I'm going to use an exclamation point. All of this should be worked out before you go to final draft, before you add text to your work. And if you look over here, I've done that. And here is my final draft. I really don't like it that much, to tell you the truth. I can't seem to get the colors just right. And you can see there is my cartoon, and here's my movement. The full background, moving into my midground, moving to my foreground, and then bursting to the picture plane. Now, I don't like the color, but I had a reason for the colors. I wanted to introduce you also the idea of atmospheric perspective. I'm using a gradation of tone, dark blue to a light blue, a dark green to a light green, and that has helped creating the space there. We did this with the fish drawing. We did talk about this during the perspective work. Please remember these skills are supposed to go into our artwork. So at this point, you should have a finished piece in your sketchbook. You want the piece to clearly show line and shape to create movement, and you can do it as big or as small as you want. We talked about the sketchbook. You can do it in your sketchbook. That's fine. And in fact, maybe that's the way we should go with most students. It's just a better way to keep the work and to find the work. I'll be doing another video for the next project. So that's where we are. So everyone should have a finished product done now, and I'm going to do another video in a moment to set up a new project for everyone. So make art, because art won't make itself. Bye-bye.